And there are ways and ways to make it perfect. And you can make it perfect by Christ the Master, by Krishna the Master, by Buddha the Master, by Ramakrishna the Master, Nityananda the Master. Doesn't matter. Only that it's a master that is accomplished. What do? You become similar. You become similar. You absorb. The master is the key. Shivasutra is attributed to the sage Vasugupta, who lived in the 9th century, and it is said that the text was given to him directly by Shiva. So 3 stories. 1, Shiva came as a great master and gave him the Shivasutra. The other story, Shiva came in a dream. Normally, if it's a dream, it's a meditation, guys. Also, the dream of Jacob with the ladder and all sorts of dreams, it's normally that they meditate and they have a vision. At least one interpretation of it. And the third, and very popular until today, is that in a dream Shiva revealed to him where there is a stone on which the text is written. And until today, that stone is, that area where it was given is a place of worship, and people go and meditate there and do go on pilgrim there. So the stone was like Moses' 10 Commandments, and the Ark of the Covenant was carved into stone by a divine hand. The text has 77 sutras and 3 chapters. The Shiva Sutra describes 3 plus 1 ways of attaining enlightenment. It describes implicitly, without going into much detail, Anupaya, the way without a way. It's like, oh, I remember that I am God and one with everything. A little bit similar to the ways of Ramana Maharishi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Papaji, Gangaji, and so forth. This who am I question, realizing I was this all along. It describes in greater detail in the first chapter Shambhavapaya. This is the path of consciousness, the path of Shiva, in which we contemplate, now I am conscious. What's the nature of consciousness? And when we meet the observer, to quote Ramakrishna, he says, you got to convince the light man, the watchman with his light, to turn the light instead of looking at the outer world, to look and see the watchman. When you behold the watchman, you behold the nature of consciousness itself. From consciousness to the absolute is just a touch, it's just a realization, a flash of realization. So Shambhavapaya, the path of Shiva, the path of consciousness, is a path of enlightenment through a flash. Also in some Zen traditions it is said like that. Also, to quote another Jewish rabbi, the Baal Shemtov, from the 17th or 18th century from Romania, he would go for long periods of observation. They said, what are you observing? He said, I'm observing the observer. And to quote St. Francis of Assisi, he says, what you are looking for is what is looking. So Francis said, if you want to find God, look at who is looking from your eyes. So this is Shambhavapaya, and we will have 1 sutra from there. The next path is Shaktopaya, the path of energy, the path of intensity, and the path of knowledge. It is the path of mantras, and in this path you resonate with big universal energies. They are huge energies, like they are radio waves, and you can surf them in great intensity, taking your own individual love, connecting to universal love, but also your own anger, entering universal anger, it will also take you there. Any kind of intense emotion taken from the individual to the universal will take us back to the source of everything. This is Shaktopaya, and we'll have 1 verse from there. And finally, Anavopaya, the path of individual effort, which is most of all traditions and religions. If you cannot observe the nature of consciousness, you cannot realize that you are that, you cannot create such an intensity of energy or of mantric sound in order to resonate with universal energies, listen to your breath. do some Hatha Yoga, do some efforts, repeat Ave Maria, pray, Jesus Christ have mercy, do some very basic practices, the path of individual effort. We have individual effort, the small engine, the mother, the big engine, the consciousness, the father, the flash, and the path of I. These are the 4 descriptions here. So we will start with a sutra from the path of the mother, from Shaktopaya, the feminine path, the path of energy. And this quote says, Gurur Upaya He. So the 4 upayas, the 4 paths, Gurur Upaya He literally means the guru is the path, or is the means, is the way. Yeah? What does it mean? You jump on your guru's back and he takes you, or you step on him and you walk on him until you find the way? It means that the guru indicates the way. Becoming like your master, you find the way. To quote Jesus Christ from John 14:6, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. A genuine master is the example. What do you become like in order to be free from suffering and to know the ultimate spiritual reality of the universe? What do you become like? You become like your master. Hopefully a living master, but also if you have a master that's not necessarily accessible to you on the day-to-day life, like Jesus Christ or like Lord Krishna, each master that comes and attains enlightenment is another configuration, different and rich. Krishna and Christ, they are the same one way, but also different another way. But they represent a configuration of success, a complete configuration. If you have the qualities like Krishna, you're free. It's like with these Rubik cubes. You play with the configuration until it's perfect. And there are ways and ways to make it perfect. And you can make it perfect by Christ the Master, by Krishna the Master, by Buddha the Master, by Ramakrishna the Master, Nityananda the Master. Doesn't matter. Only that it's a master that is accomplished. What do? You become similar. You become similar. You absorb. The master is the key. You become similar, like you would duplicate a key. You become similar. Virtuous, fearless, loving, quiet, determined. You acquire that configuration. Self-sacrifice, like Christ. Inner freedom, like Krishna. Wisdom, like Buddha. Devotion, like Ramakrishna. You acquire that set of qualities, until you're complete. You're not free. But by going closer, 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 until you acquire that set of qualities, which will be a little different in your case because you're different, but once it's similar enough, click, the Rubik Cube is done. If you do Christ, you do love for humanity, self-sacrifice, loving God, you do all the things, but you don't do humility, you're still proud, sorry, no liberation for you. But then if you continue with Christ and you love Christ and you read the Bible, you continue until you get, okay, I need to get humility. You get humility, okay, you have humility, love for God, devotion, self-sacrifice, mustard seed of faith, check. And you're done. There's a click there. And this click, it means you also became a key that fits. And you can go on the other side. No one comes to the Father except through me. Until you become like me, you don't go out of the keyhole. That's how it goes. The next quote from the path of Shiva, the path of the Father, Udyamo Bhairava He. There's two translations here, one very short and one long. Maybe I start with the short. The short one. The upsurge of consciousness is Bhairava. Upsurge like a rising, like an impetus, like a rapture of consciousness. Is Bhairava, is God. Bhairava is the ultimate, absolute, completely scary, without attribute God, the total void of God. The long quote, or the long translation to understand it with more detail, that effort, the flashing forth of active awareness that instantaneously makes universal consciousness shine, is Bhairava. The longing for God is God. At this stage, on this path of Shiva, you realize, that we said what you're looking for is what is looking. What is longing is what you are longing for. When the longing becomes so intense that you crash like a flash of awareness that becomes universal, that is Shiva. And we have there, to understand this from a Christian perspective as well, this amazing picture of this goddess, Teresa of Avila, who wrote one of the most beautiful mystical biographies in the 15th century, receiving some teachings from the great Saint Pedro de Alcántara, and being herself the spiritual mother of Saint John of the Cross, the author of this dark night of the soul. She would experience raptures. She would describe states of prayer, starting with the prayer of silence, where her mind would go off, the prayer of quiet, as she would call it, the prayer of union, which would come after that, where she would become one with God, and the prayer of rapture, where she would be taken up into the heavens with such tremendous longing. Even physically, the testimonies say Teresa of Avila would fly. When she prayed, she would pray and her body would start to lift. She said, I would have no control over it. Some people saw her, and this was Spanish Inquisitions, they said, she's haunted by the devil. Let's put her for investigation of the Inquisition, which was worse than the KGB. So she was very shy about it, and all the sisters, when she would pray and there would be people from the outside visiting the monastery, it was like a rugby thing. She would pray, and as if she would start to uplift, poof, they would have a pile of sisters on top of her. She was nearly taken by the Spanish Inquisition, and we would not have heard anything about her. But the great saint, Saint Pedro de Alcántara, came and told them, guys, it is not the devil that lifts her up in prayer, it is God. This rapture, in which one's being, the longing becomes so big that it just cracks consciousness open. You just want nothing else, you can think of nothing else, you've had enough of everything, and it boils to such a degree that it connects the entire life force, becomes extremely vivid, and is pushed up in a rapture. This udyamo comes from ud, which means like udyana banda or udana vayu, the upward flow. The wish to rise becomes so intense that it cancels all the weight of materialism, attachment, sin, you name it. The wish to unite with God becomes so big. What to do in that moment, the Shivasutra tells us, when you want to unite with God so intensely, know, dear friend, that you cannot have such an impulse. If you have such an impulse, rejoice, because God has come down to take you home. Recognize, this is the key of this sutra, recognize. If you don't recognize, you might miss the chance. Recognize that it is not you who is longing for God, but it is God longing for God through you. It is said, you would not have searched for me if you hadn't found me already. So this is from the Shivasutra, and we will continue to the Tantra Sara.
Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.